Okay, all right. So I will call the Town of Essex Selectboard meeting for Monday, October 2nd, 2023 to order.
Recording in progress.
Just quickly, I want to make sure that folks online can hear us.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks for the confirmation. And so first thing we do is ask if there are any agenda additions or changes, any changes from staff.
None from staff.
Okay, thank you. Any changes from board members? Don, you passed out a
That's just for information.
document. You want to?
I just those are branding ideas that Ken forwarded to me, and I wanted to share them to the board when that logo discussion came up.
Okay, so sometimes if that kind of thing happens, we will amend the agenda to include it if that's what you'd like to do.
I don't care. However you usually do it. I just gave it to you, so I wanted to share with you. So.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll. It's not in the packet, so folks didn't have an opportunity to see it. So I don't know what do we want to?
You either have to read it or have printed copies here for the public.
There's printed copies
There's
over there.
printed
There are printed
copies.
copies over there.
I mean, if there's sufficient amount of copies for people in the room, I think that's fine.
So do we want to amend the agenda and include it? I think we should.
Yeah.
Sure. So discussion of new town logo with branding suggestions. How's that?
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion passes 4-1. Like getting stuff at the last minute. Okay, let's move on to public to be heard. Public to be heard is a time during the meeting where folks who are in attendance can speak to the board about town business that's not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak during public to be heard, you can raise your hand in the room, or you can raise your hand online by moving your cursor down to the bottom of your screen, and a reactions button will appear. You click on that and will give the opportunity to raise your hand. If you are participating by phone, I don't see anybody doing that currently, but if somebody joins by phone, we can ask them if they'd like to speak. So is anyone in the room who'd like to speak during public to be heard?
Yeah.
No hands in the room. Anybody online want to speak during public to be heard? Patty Davis.
Yeah, sure. Hello. I just want to make a comment about the technical issues when you're recording meetings. I try really hard to attend some of the meetings, but because I'm retired, and other people that want to listen to the meetings that can't make it because they work, like the economic development this past week. I spoke up to be heard, and I didn't go to the meeting. I was online, and granted, it took them 8 minutes to get going, and I understand technical issues, but I've already dealt with this with the select board. I had to go to 2 meetings in a row to get what I had to say so that it was being recorded properly. And now I'm running into the same thing with the Economic Development Commission, that they weren't able to capture me. And I'm going to Scotland on Thursday morning. I don't have time to go back. So I don't know what you guys want to do about it, but I thought I should bring it to your attention that it's a real problem. Thanks.
I should have brought it. I couldn't read it.
Anything more you want to say, though?
I've been attending the planning commission meetings for 7 or 8 years now, most of them. I think I actually have better attendance than some of the members. Yeah, I've been interested in it a long time. I have, people were complaining to me years ago about what the quote unquote new town center looked like, as opposed to what it was first proposed. to look like back in the 90s when that was approved. And so then I started coming to the planning commission meetings to understand, what happened and why. And, a lot of it had to do with regulation. And what I was told is that a lot of it had to do with lack of teeth in the regulations, that they could make suggestions on how things could look, but they really didn't have the teeth in the regulations to enforce what people wanted. So I've been sort of following along, worked along with some of the different groups that were formed partly in anticipation of a merger or separation from the village, and then also just the meetings and the previous town plan that was developed back 5 years ago or so.
Right.
And I have a background in design and architecture, mostly residential. So I think that sometimes what I've seen happen is that people will come in and they will, say they like one thing or another, but they don't necessarily understand why it is they like something. But generally speaking, there are actual design tenets behind what people like and what they don't like. And so having somebody on the planning commission who is able to describe that, I think would be helpful on many occasions, which I have.
Right, thank you. Any questions from board members?
What do you envision the future town of Essex looking like, Paula? You've been here a long time.
Yeah, I've been here for 42 years, and I'm a native New Englander. I really kind of agree with the extensive survey, the results of the survey that was done in anticipation of the town center focus. But a lot of the questions were also about the town in general, and it was pretty obvious that most people in the town wanted Essex to remain having the feeling of a New England town. It's sort of New England's brand, and I think I agree that it looks appropriate here in our landscape, and there are certainly ways of doing it and modernizing things, but still maintaining some of the shapes that are traditional in New England architecture in general.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
All right. What's an instance where you've been a part of something that you weren't really in favor of? And how did you find common ground?
Well, I think I guess I usually see the other person's perspective, but getting to know what that perspective is and why it exists is helpful in finding ways to find a solution that everybody can be okay with. Maybe not everyone will be thrilled, but at least accepting. I've had to do that in my business which I've been in for 50 years. So, and sometimes it's finding solutions between differences in a husband and a wife and what they want in a new house. So resolving those, conflict resolution is a big part of the job. But finding win-win solutions is just sort of second nature to me at this point. So, and I think, being respectful and looking for solutions that can satisfy everybody. And you can usually come pretty close if you have imagination and you're taking the other people's interests and concerns seriously.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Somebody else?
Question.
And-
That was my question. I guess I would ask, with the current situations in town, there is some contention going on the board. Do you have an idea of how you might work towards a resolution?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said.
Right now, there is some conflict in the town in the zoning regs and the planning and zoning commission as well. Do you have a plan or an idea of where you might, what you might address first, should you be appointed?
Well, I think I haven't become aware of the specifics of differences. I think that, the community is a really well-educated and generally well-informed community. So I don't see a lot of concerns that aren't legitimate being brought forward. So I think as long as the concerns are addressed, you're never going to make everybody happy, but as long as people's concerns and their wishes are taken seriously and you make some effort to accommodate them, I think that's how you resolve conflicts.
Thank you.
Trace?
So, Paula, as you know, we do have a charter change outstanding at the legislature, which would include formation of a development review board, or a DRB. So, understanding that the Planning Commission, as it currently exists, reviews those development applications. If an application came in front of you that you personally disagreed with, what would you rely on to guide your decision making?
I guess I'm a little confused about the question. My personal feeling is not the issue. It's what the regulations say, what the regulations allow, and my general feeling in terms of what the community has said in recent years that the community agrees on and wants. So, finding ways to resolve that conflict, keeping both of those, if the opinions are different, keeping, the discrepancies in mind, but finding things that might solve it for both people or that they can agree on, but coming to a resolution is, it's generally a matter of respect, and on the Planning Commission, as in a lot of town bodies, it has to do with being true to what the regulations say, but trying to find good solutions within those regulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you. That's the right answer.
I'm sorry?
That's the right answer, that the
Oh.
regulations are king. Yeah. Regardless of your personal opinion. Yeah. So, do you have any questions for us? This is what we're considering here is an alternate slot.
Right.
And so you would only participate in the voting, if
When I was replacing
if
somebody,
a member was
standing in for
absent.
someone, yeah.
Correct. So,
Yeah, I understand that, but I was also informed that I would be sitting with the Planning Commission and be able to contribute to discussions. I just wouldn't be able to vote
Right, to the vote.
unless I was representing somebody.
okay. Do you have any questions for the select board?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I've been involved in town government on, a number of different ways over the years.
Okay.
Which is in the application.
All right. So do we,
I just want to know if there were any other applicants this time.
I think this is, I didn't talk about that, but Greg, I think this has been posted for quite a long time.
That's all.
It has. I think we've had it up for a couple of months or so, and Paula is the only applicant.
Then
Is there, Greg, is there a specific term for the alternate?
We would treat it just like any other planning commission seat as far as length of term, so that's 4 years.
But we, you know, the planning commission as it exists today will be changing most likely, you know, fairly soon, but,
I'm doing that.
I was gonna do it. But
Go ahead.
No,
Go
you
ahead.
go. I make the motion that we appoint Paula Duke to the vacant alternate seat on the planning commission for a 4-year term.
Second.
thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Don. Any further discussion?
Just with clarity, when the planning commission and the DRB split, she will stay with the planning commission.
I think there'll be a discussion at that point as to where people want to go, or if they want to go, and we may need to, I don't know, we'll have to figure out how that works. It may be that planning commission members stay planning commission members. I don't think we can remove them from their appointed seat, even although their mission may change. But then people will need to be appointed to the DRB. So we have to sort out how all that will work.
Thank you.
And some people are going to be interested in development review.
Right.
They may wanna
Yeah,
jump
people
over
can choose,
it.
and there's nothing that prevents someone from being on both.
Will the charter allow for an alternate position on either commission?
So I think we're following statute with this. And Greg, I know one of those boards is alternates are not allowed. Is it the
Would have to
It's,
be planning, probably.
the planning commission can have alternates, but the DRB cannot? Is that
No, the other way around.
The
So
other
it's
way- the other way
Okay.
around, yeah.
the term is called the appropriate municipal panel, and that's the one that's doing the development review. So
Right.
right now, because the planning commission is doing the development review,
Yep.
they're allowed to have an alternate. Once the DRB starts that position or starts that role, the alternate can be on the DRB, not the planning commission.
all right? So we may need to reappoint or to figure that out how logistically what we need to do there. But thanks for that. Thanks for asking the question. Now it cements in my mind that it's the responsible, or the I already forgot what the word was you used, Greg. The board that does the development review is the one that is allowed to have alternates. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Paula. very much.
Congratulations. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming forward. And
I would add one thing, having to do with the whole discussion of planning versus DRB. And I have appeared before both but Burlington has also a design review.
mhm.
So they have design review, they have a planning commission, and they have a
development review.
DRB. Thank you. I would like to see at some point, not necessarily a board, but at least an advisory committee that would sit maybe with the planning commission. No, with the DRB, if we have a DRB involved officially. Not for me, but just, I mean, I'm old. I'll be dead by the time you get around to that. So,
So you're talking
Hope
about
not.
design review?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, not official board, but just, I mean, you
An
could
advisory
have
group.
some appointed people who are advisory to the development review board.
All right, thanks for that.
Something along those lines I would not be opposed to. And then that would take that particular piece out of the planning commission or out of the DRB's headache list.
For your comments. Thanks for stepping forward. All right, let's move on to business item 5B, discussion about new town logo. Greg, is that
I'll kick it off and I'm gonna turn it over to Ethan and Don, who've been involved with this as well. Apologies, Tammy Getchell had an injury and she couldn't make it tonight. But she'd been working on this quite a bit. You've seen some options, had some discussions about the logo before. Ethan, Tammy, and Don formed a little working group over the past few weeks, a couple months maybe, and tried to make some additional adjustments and tweaks. That's what you see in your packet today. I'll let Ethan and Don speak to that process. As they were working on that, Rebecca Robinson, who's also here tonight, she's the chair of the Economic Development Commission. She reached out. We had a discussion with her on Friday, and kind of had this just a discussion about logos, branding, kind of more big picture stuff behind the logo. Just to refresh you all, there's been talk since the separation with Essex Junction about kind of helping to find the town of Essex's new identity, what the branding looks like, what the logo looks like. We have taken a lot of steps towards identity, in my opinion, from the Step In and Come Together event, the Explore Essex event from last year, the one that's happening this coming year. Doing some work around the logo, plenty of other things as well. Part of the reason we were tackling, and Tammy in particular was tackling the logo right now, is because we have a website redesign that's due. That's part of our contract with our web host. The thought was that if we could get a logo in place fairly soon, we could use that color scheme to inform the website and take that step towards branding and identification. All this is to say that it is potentially still a work in progress. We're going to bring it to you tonight for an update, and then spend some time over the next couple of weeks with Explore Essex, getting the word out to the community. After speaking to Rebecca, we think maybe we should delay that by a week or two. With Tammy's latest news, maybe it's kicked out a little bit beyond that. If we can get something in place and hear feedback from the community and have the community, if we can't, it has been taking up a fair amount of time and might be something that's worth putting on the back burner while we can focus on some other things. But so that's just the preview. With that, I'll turn it over to Ethan and Don about some of the work they did with Tammy, and then maybe Rebecca can weigh in after that. And she has a background in marketing and branding and stuff as well, so she has a good perspective on all this.
Fine.
Okay.
Don,
So as Greg said, we started a working group. Me, Tammy, and Don. Really, we went off from what we had looked at our previous meeting, and we took the 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 ideas we had, and I reviewed, and Don did, and I know Tammy did a bunch. We looked at all the comments that we got from the public, from the surveys, and the things that they wanted to see, and really just tried to simplify this humongous town and all it has to offer in one picture. So we went with one of the largest voted on the survey, which was the Farm and Country, and then we did a couple of variations of that, 1 and 2, and then we tried to mix in the recreation with Mount Mansfield per se, with 3 and 4, and then with the kayak, with just the mountain, it was more resemblance of Indian Brook, and then not necessarily the view that you see at Indian Brook, but the fact that we still have the mountain views and when your travels, and more of a recreation based logo. And then we kept it simple because I had remembered a wise guy said that the last logo was simple, and there's not a lot that's contentious about it, so I threw it in there because I was like, I agreed. And I mean, really, we tried the best. I think the one of the other things is the font and the location of the font is still, if you look at number 2, I advocated for that style font instead of on the side. That way, no matter where you put the logo, the town of Essex, the name Essex is still part of the logo. But it was hard to make it as like a banner or anything. But there's many variations that we could do. We tried our best to piece it together. So a lot more to it than drawing it with a pencil and
Mhm.
slapping a sticker on it. I don't know if Don has anything to add.
Yeah, good.
So,
We went from 300.
yeah, there was
over 300 suggestions to these
371
few that you see here.
different types of logos that we pieced into these.
Oh, wow.
And we really only have, there's really only 3 designs or 4 designs in the packet here. So we had come up with a goal. We were hoping to kick it off for the Explore Essex, but we weren't able to make that happen. So the question was would we be able to get it off to have a public vote on if we could agree on a certain amount of designs, or depending on the EDC meeting, like Greg had mentioned, we'd kick it back until there's another public outreach where we can get it voted, because everybody's putting a lot of time into it, and there's no sense in continuing to work on it if there's not going to be a decision made. I'd prefer to see a decision made. I know they're working on updating the website, and we could at least have a color scheme,
Mm-hmm.
and we wouldn't have to go out and re-decal all the trucks tomorrow and print new shirts and everything else, but we'd at least have somewhere to start with, and as you know, everything can be revisited if that need arose, but I feel confident that we could get public input on these and have a desired logo in the public.
I guess we would ask what you think of them, ones that we narrowed it down to.
I don't know. Take a look at them again.
There you go.
I don't have any objections to any of them.
I do agree that I like the ones where Essex is part
Underneath
of
the logo.
the logo.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were gonna have that be part of the discussion tonight, because I felt the same way. It's just more inclusive of this is Essex, and I think it'd be easier print wise. I think it looks fancier personally.
I have to say my favorite was 3. If we could get Essex under the.
Under it, I
Under it.
agree.
That looks like an island to me.
Really?
Oh, right. You could envision the blue in the background as as additional water in the background, huh? Is that what you're?
Just as
Yeah, I guess I do like the Essex underneath. You could even cut off Vermont in some instances if it doesn't fit.
Right, exactly.
Um,
Or in a public works sense, you could go. I don't know, I'm just using number 2 as an example, but you could go above or below, and it could say town of easily.
Can you just run through them slowly so that we can?
Yeah, I don't have the. Andy's got the.
no, that's Greg doing that.
Greg's got the.
yeah, if you changed number 2, say town of Essex
Right. It'd be,
underneath, that'd be perfect.
yeah.
Like-
And if I may, I can't find my raised hand feature. I'm sorry for interrupting. And hopefully Rebecca can speak to some of this too, and where the location, from my understanding, after talking to Tammy and others about where the font is, that the font might move depending on what you're doing, whether it's a banner, whether it's a sign, whether it's a logo. Part of what we talked about on Friday, which is after some of these logos were produced, was keeping things simple. And so having a quick recognizable, identifiable thing that can be on the business card or on a big banner. Which is some of the stuff that Tammy's been working on. So like number 3 looks great, might look great. There's also a lot going on in there. And so just trying to keep some of that stuff in mind too. I think what's here is workable. But as we were talking more, and again, Rebecca might have more insight into some of this stuff of just what's going to be successful and identifiable to really connote Essex.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rebecca Robinson. For those of you I haven't met, I'm on the EDC and recently was nominated to be the chair. So I'm here on behalf of the EDC as well as myself, and understand a lot of amazing work has been done. Ethan, you, Dawn, across the board, and especially Tammy, who's been leading the charge on this. And I know we're also, as an EDC, coming in at the 11th hour as we've been working through a lot of the key priorities and actions that we're working through for what we're going to be bringing to the town in the next year. And one of the big pieces was branding. And so just a few things that popped up, and we were hoping maybe we could jump in quick with Tammy and Ethan and Dawn if it's working with you over the next week or so. But I think there's a few small tweaks that we can potentially make to ensure that it's multimedia, multi-channel, and has the ability to be used across so many different platforms that are needed, including merchandise, et cetera, for the town. So you have a really great starting spot, and there's actually some really small tweaks that we can make in best practices from a logo perspective that could then also be used across like different departments, commissions, and committees. Sorry, it's my kids in the background if you hear them. And so I think that there's like a few tweaks that we could potentially make to some of the designs that you currently have for how we could then leverage that and use it across the board. And then also part of what we had raised as an EDC is that the logo is amazing, and understanding we have this great work that we're doing on the website. The one piece too that we should really be thinking about is the branding and how that comes to life for the town. So if there's a slogan or a one line and how we bring that to life for the town to use on whether it's signs or merchandise, or how we pull everything together for our town and really identify. There's some small steps that we can take to incorporate that into the logo. Some of these things take a little bit of time, like some of the branding that we could potentially come up with, and we can do that after the logo. But then there were some of the considerations that we were just hoping that maybe we could work with you to make some of these small tweaks to ensure that we create a logo that can really be used across the board versus having to constantly evolve and change it down the road.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. Any other thoughts or comments from board members?
Yes,
Go ahead.
I'll make a couple comments. One, I actually like number 7 the best because it is very generic. It includes everybody. I do not like the kayaker just because you're picking out one group and putting it on the town logo. I like the idea of like a recreation, including everybody. I would just notice that. And I do think it's important in whatever logo that we have it say the town of Essex. That's all. That's my opinion. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? I see your hand up in the public. That's why I'm asking to make sure there's no other board comments first. On, you had wanted to talk about this.
No, I just wanted everybody to be able to look at the branding suggestions that came out. That was
Okay.
all. And Rebecca just talked about branding. So, but I do have a question for Kendall. What does that number 7 tell you about Essex?
I think there's a lot of opportunity for it to say a lot of things about Essex, because you could take and you could, as you develop your brand, you could add icons to that logo if you wanted to. And so it starts out very inclusive for everybody, but as you narrow in what the town of Essex is going to develop into as the town, you could modify your logo fairly easily, and it's very unique. I like to be unique.
Do you want to see that, Paula? Is that what you were trying to see?
Yeah, it would be helpful to see what he's talking about.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, we don't have our other TV on
I
tonight.
actually-
Sorry about
I
that.
actually-
Greg, can you bring up the number 7?
But I'd like
There
to
we go.
see it again. The
There it
one
is.
thing that seems
There it
to
is.
be missing are any houses.
Paula, this is the one. Paula, that's up here.
Yeah, no, it's
But I definitely think that's
Thank-
important what you're saying about the kayak. But as far as updating the logo, I think we're trying to get away from either we pick a logo and it stays the logo for a decent amount of time, or we don't do a logo at all. Because we're not, we all made our workload for this year. We don't have time to talk about a logo every 6 weeks or 6 months, or you know what I mean. But I did want to point out the other day, somebody had asked me about the barn and the logo. If you drive down every single major road in Essex, Route 15, Route 128, Route 117, you can go down Old Stage, you can go down Weed Road, you can go down. I don't think there's a barn on Sand Hill anymore.
Brigham Hill.
Brigham Hill. Well, Brigham Hill's got one barn left. They took the other one down. It was beautiful. But my point is Essex is not anymore, but it was a huge farming community, and there's so much value in that scenery. The other one I meant to mention was Chapin Road, because I've been traveling down Chapin Road a lot, down to the old Matthews farm, and every time I drive by Phil Murdoch's farm with all the out-of-staters there for the apple season, and he doesn't even have pick your own apples this year, it just drives a point in my head. And to Rebecca's point is, there's a brand to be had with having this town center and having the hot air balloon landing in your front yard on Old Stage Road, every night of the week. So I agree, and I hope we can, and it doesn't have to be a week, I hope we can narrow this down pretty quickly and find a brand and make those changes, because there's so much, and that was actually the number. I don't remember if it was exactly number one, but it was one of the top ideas for what people see in the town. And it was Town Meets Country. I know that's not a selly brand if you put it on a logo as words, but that was one of the number one ideas of
Ethan, could you repeat what you said? You said something. It's what was that?
Sorry, my voice is still a little crackly. One of the number 1, 2, 3 ideas that had come up when they did the survey for the logo and what people think of Essex and what they see was the main idea in the logo that was selected was one of the Town Meets Country.
But I think the reason I like number 2 is it has buildings in it, because
Right.
it's not just
Foods.
a recreation area. It's a vibrant community.
Right. I agree. That was my choice also, but I agree. We worked up until this on Friday at I think it was 5:00 the last time I talked to Greg, and Tammy did a couple things to get it in the packet. There's so much that we tried to change and add, and I think Rebecca makes a lot of really good points that a few small changes and we could really have something that's printable and representable, and I'm actually really excited to speak with her. So
All right, Margaret Smith.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just had some comments. I was thinking back to the woman who came and talked to you last week, and I can't remember what it was about, but she seemed very confused about Essex, and it is confusing. There is an Essex, New York, and a town of Essex, and the city of Essex, and I correct me, but I think we also have a county of Essex in
Yep.
Vermont.
Yep.
And so I really think you need to include town of Essex and Vermont somewhere on it to help clarify that confusion. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Margaret. And then I think I saw, Polly, did you have a comment? Did you have additional comments? Or
Are you talking to me?
yeah, Polly, you're sitting at the table, so
I'm sorry. I'm
You're just
sort
trying
of
to get
used to it
closer
because
to
I'm the only one at the planning commission meetings. They just at the table.
Okay, and I saw Betsy's hand next then. So come on up, Betsy, and introduce yourself and make your comment.
Betsy Dunn, and they're all very interesting. And I agree that I don't think the kayaker should be there. You want to give the illusion of you could do many things in the town of Essex. But I don't understand why the silhouette of the mountain doesn't represent Mansfield, because that looms over this town. And it has hiking, it has skiing, it has biking. Then you have the water, that's all the different water sports that you have. And you don't have to see those people, you just know that that's where you can do those things. So I would rather see, and I don't mind the barn, I don't mind the houses or businesses, whichever those are, and I do agree the town of Essex. I think that's really important. But I just wonder why we changed the mountain a little to be generic and not be the silhouette of something that is every day we see when you travel on 15. Just that.
Thanks, Beth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw Bruce post his hand next.
What you just need is another opinion. Generally speaking, I like number 2 for a variety of the reasons. The one thing that confuses me, water really isn't much of a characteristic of Essex. I mean, we've got the river and we've got Indian Brook, but from a land use space, it's not much. So that big blue thing is, to me, looks like somewhere else, and I would de-emphasize that, make it smaller or something. That's I just want, and I don't mind the generic mountains. We're not Underhill. Underhill is Mount Mansfield really is characteristic of Underhill. I just like the more generic look of the mountains. And I like the theme of where town meets country. I think you can play with that. And I just said the other thing about 2 I didn't like was the emphasis on the water when water is not a big part of what Essex is. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Bruce. And Ken Signorello, come on up.
Hi, Paula. Ken Signorello, how are you? So I produced this list and gave it to Dawn and a few others, I think. I won't talk too much about the logo itself, although everybody's obviously noticing that some things just are overemphasized. Yeah, instead of kayaking, obviously, mountain biking might be the thing. We have more mountain biking going on than I think we have kayaking. But getting back to the whole idea of having a brand before you have a logo, I know I've said this plenty of times, so I thought I would just ask ChatGPT what kind of branding ideas it might come up with. And shockingly enough, came up with 10 incredible branding ideas. And it really helped me understand how much we could potentially be missing. Really, really important. So I really urge you to take a look at these. I'm going to just mention 2 of them, which I think are very cool and a great idea. Essex Crafted. Highlight the town's artisanal and craft culture. Essex, Vermont could be known for local breweries, distilleries, farmers markets, artisan workshops, promoting a series of community and community of craftsmanship. Great idea. And there's absolutely nothing, and I hear constantly talking about how we need to be developing our industry and our tax base. There's nothing in the logo that would tell a person from outside we are wanting to attract business.
Open for business.
Bingo. So the very last one that came up I thought was, Essex Tech Nexus. Embrace the tech industry's growing presence in Essex. This brand could showcase tech startups, innovation centers, and educational institutions, positioning Essex as a hub for tech enthusiasts and professionals. Yes, we absolutely were and still are an agricultural community, but we are so much more now. And I think that's the challenge and the problem with coming up with a logo. So the brand really should come first, and then the logo should follow. But it's going to be complicated, and compromises are probably going to be necessary. But yeah, the mountains, we're not Cambridge. We're not Underhill. The mountains aren't right there. It's off. Yes, water is not as really big of a part of Essex as you might think it is. We talk about Indian Brook quite a bit. The mountain biking, I had no idea. Everybody has their personal perspective on what Essex is all about. That's a challenge. It was a challenge for me. I went over to Saxon Hill and saw 40 cars in the parking lot that were all mountain biking. What the heck? I had no idea. So we need to be thinking about not ourselves and what we think of Essex. It's very important to have a good sense of what everybody thinks of Essex, and more importantly, what we want people that don't know Essex to think about Essex. Because this is a marketing opportunity. This is a way to sell people to come to Essex and industry to come to Essex. The most important thing we're really interested in seems to be growing the commercial tax base. Why doesn't the brand town meets country? Doesn't say anything about industry. Logo doesn't reflect that at all. We need to be thinking about that. I'd ask one question. If we don't update the website, let's say in 12 months, do we still lose that opportunity? I'm going to assume that the company would be thrilled to put it off for 12 months and do what they promised us.
I think they'd put it off for 4 years.
It's every
which is what the
4
contract
years.
says. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can negotiate something because at least they'd be able to not do what we're proposing to do right away. But I would want to remind you that this effort is probably something we have to live with for 10 years or so. A lot of money will be spent on those logos, getting on the trucks and on potentially t-shirts and hats and all the other stuff that's going to happen. It's a big investment. So it really makes sense to do it right. And I've spoken with Rebecca. She's my chairman on the EDC, and I have a lot of confidence in her perspective on the situation. She's a little bit more politically correct than I am, more diplomatic than me. But I do appreciate all the work that's been done. Don't misunderstand me. I do appreciate it, but I really think that it's focusing too much on a couple of individual ideas, and Essex is so much more. And a clever slogan like hike it, bike it, live it, something like that would be just so much more catchy, and especially if it was a little bit more business friendly. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. Anybody else? Okay, so I guess the intent here was to have a bit of a discussion, but the request is to go back and do some more tweaking of it and have some, I guess, more discussion with the Economic Development Commission. They're meeting later this week.
Thursday, yeah.
Anything else you need, Greg?
No, I think this is, yeah, I think it's good feedback. Thank you for everyone. And Andy, I think you just nailed it. Just wanted to do a check-in and, let Don and Ethan and Rebecca and the EDC, take another look at it, see what they can come up with over the next few weeks, and then kind of make a decision about, do we keep going with it or put it on hold and just go ahead with the website update and come up with the logo and the branding, after the fact. So thanks for the input.
Right. Great.
What time is their meeting on the 5th?
EDC meeting is Thursday.
So it's Thursday, the 5th, you said, 8 a.m. I'm just saying that in the microphone because
Yeah.
I you don't have to repeat it. I just said it.
Next to yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, thanks. All right.
I just want to make a one quick comment about number 2, because that was a point of what we were doing when we were planning was the generic mountains that I'll have Greg pull it up real quick. The generic mountains that were put there was agreed upon because we thought it represented Saxon Hill. The water was there because it was Indian Brook, it was the Winooski River, it was we were asked if the barn reflected any in Essex, and really structure-wise, it was based off from the Wickham barn on 15 right there before the tree farm, right where the Browns River crosses. And then the town center is obviously the Essex Experience, but then the rolling cornfields were kind of taken from the double bridges at 128. So just I understand there's a million things, and that's been the struggle this whole process. But I just wanted to share those a little bit, if you can envision where I'm listing in the town. But we really did try and take actual sites from the town, and they're not all going to be in one picture because this town is I forget how many square miles. Yeah, 36 square miles. So you're not going to have that view.
Right.
But I just wanted to add that in, that those are real places. These aren't. We did try and be descriptive.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to Business item 5C, which is discussion and review of proposed town of Essex charter updates, chapters 9, 10, 11, and 12. So this is the last remaining bit. We will be revisiting plenty of it later, but this is to get through our first pass of the document. There's not a lot in those chapters, so we'll see where we go. So I don't know, Greg, if you could you bring up the side-by-side document there?
Yes. Yes, one moment.
Mr. Chairman, I can tell you that most of the changes for the assessment part of this and the assessor's description in real estate came from the appraiser's office. She came and presented it and asked us to put it in the way she'd like it, where these changes came from.
Okay, so there were comments on the side asking why the changes were there from probably from you, Greg.
Yep.
So I guess the question is, are we okay with making these changes? Does it actually change any? It's a lot of it is name changes.
Andy, if I may, I'm not opposed to any of the changes here. I really was just curious as to why. I probably had a conversation with Karen a year ago and forgot what the reason was. But these are the types of things where, once we get more deep into the weeds on the charter changes, that we'll have a legal review. We'll have more of a more thorough vetting of this from a legal standpoint as to if they make sense, why they make sense, those types of things.
Okay. Does anybody have any concerns with the so subchapter 9 looks like it's plannings looks like it's removed completely, right? It becomes assessing.
I think the chapter 9 is what's at the legislature now.
Right.
Right. So we don't need to talk about that. All right. So then the oh, right. Yeah, chapter 10 is name changes, changing from the real estate Department of Real Estate Appraisal to Department of Assessment. There is a question here, a consistency question, where it says that the appraiser is appointed by the manager with approval of the select board, but we don't have that specific listed in the other section of who the manager appraises. I think that's a comment just to make sure we become consistent there and add appraiser to that list in the other section of the.
Or take it out of this section.
Or take it out of this section, right? Anybody have a preference on that? Something we can talk about later?
We just should make it consistent.
Oh yeah, I guess we make it. I guess we should.
There was a lot of changes in the manager section, so we can put an arrow to that one to bring it up in conversation when we review manager section.
Yep. Making myself a note about that. And it looks like the second sentence in 117.903 was deleted and a different sentence was added. So Don, you remember anything about?
That's what she recommended.
That was what was recommended
That's
by
what
the
Karen recommended.
assessor.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of says the same thing, I think, different words.
It's the same thing.
I think, is it okay with no objections to the word changes as long as there's no unintended.
I think because she wanted it to read the way the state statute did. That's why she had it established by the laws of the state of Vermont at the end.
Okay.
She just changed it around. All
right. And then 904, there's no new language there. It's just renumbered.
Mm-hmm.
905.
I only had one question for 905, and it was why it said the law of this state when the other one said the laws of the state of Vermont. I didn't know. That was just missing a word, or if it was just a. I don't know. I was just curious. When I was reading through the one after the other, it just popped in my head, too. It probably doesn't make a difference. I just didn't know if.
So it used to say under the general statutes.
Right.
It says under the
Law of the
Just
state.
just make it consistent.
Or except as
Consistency.
otherwise noted, so we'll just do
It's just right as the state of Vermont.
by the state of
That's
Vermont.
fine, yeah.
same
Should add
thing.
Vermont in there.
I don't know. I just bringing it up because I had underlined it to remember to say something.
Yep. Just put Vermont in. That would be fine.
So do we want to make these changes? So that this is again is this
Yeah, just
recommended by the
yeah.
assessor?
Yep.
I'm glad to see that I'm still having trouble reading this sentence as I did over the weekend because my brain is consistent. But in 905, Department of Assessment shall have the same power, discharge the same duties, proceed in the discharge of in the same manner.
The discharge of their responsibilities.
Oh,
Proceed in the discharge of in the same manner.
yeah.
It could be said better.
Yeah, that is awkward to have two prepositions, three prepositions.
Shall have the
one
same
after the other.
power,
Yeah.
discharge the same duties, and proceed in the.
One of the
Oh, I see
things.
what you're
It's almost like
I
we're
see what
missing
you're
a word
saying.
in there.
One of the things that got me with a lot of these
the
is
in sounds awkward. Yeah.
half of these whole sections in this whole charter are one sentence.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like a lot of them have periods halfway through and give you a break to think about what you read and then finish reading the rest of it.
There's commas in there.
Comma does not mean stop and end the sentence. But I don't know. I'm not a grammar fanatic. Okay, I'm dyslexic and I have a hard time reading. When I read a sentence that's 3 days long, I'd forget what the sentence meant. You know what I mean? But
I mean, the original wording really
was the same
covers-
way. Yeah, I know. I get it. That's why this whole charter is
So we
with that.
we could go back to the original wording, just changing the name of the department.
I mean, I'm fine with it either way if that's what Karen suggested. I just, it sounds like we're missing a word, so if we could just clarify that.
Okay, consistency and clarification.
What if you did in the proceed in the discharge of the? We've already got duties in it, don't we? That actually
I
could
think
come
it's
out.
just
It's a repeated statement, basically. So that line could actually come out.
proceed in the yeah.
Shall have the same power and discharge the same duties, which is the same thing you're saying again. So that would actually come out.
Proceed in the discharge. Yeah, I mean, if you're discharging duties, you're proceeding in the discharge.
Right. Same thing.
And then go and be subject to the same liabilities as prescribed.
So you're suggesting remove the phrase proceed in the discharge of in the same manner?
Yep.
I think so.
And just leave the and be subject to the
Yep.
same liabilities as prescribed.
Right. That does make it cleaner.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Yep. Thank you for that. Subchapter 10, amendment of charter and initiatives.
Just got renumbered, it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why the words and initiatives was added to there.
Oh. Excuse me.
I was curious
Why
why.
is and initiatives needed? Anybody know that?
I have no idea.
Well, in case somebody initiates the charter change.
Yeah, but that's not even listed as anything.
Someone's attempting to initiate an amendment. The rationale that would cover like a petition to
Right.
amend.
Like if somebody brought like the petition that came for, I forgot now whatever it was, but
Recall.
No, there was a 3+3 one that happened a while ago.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
the one that Mr. Kennison brought us
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
was
yeah.
also a petition. So that's an initiative to change the charter. So that's why that's in there.
Amendment of
My
charter.
understanding.
Yeah, but a petition brought forward that is some of the things somebody came up with, and a petition that comes forward that has the legal and the amount of signatures that we require in our charter are totally different things, and that's covered in petitions, isn't it?
It's kind of covered under statute, yeah. But the thing that confuses me is initiatives isn't mentioned in the section. And I guess I'm not sure that. I mean, I didn't understand what it meant.
No, I didn't either, and I'm gonna add in why we're changing to state statute, because I've looked back through a couple of the other sections to see what words we use, and for the whole update to this charter, it goes back and forth between state statute, the one that says law of the state,
Laws of
and
the state
Vermont
of
state law.
Vermont, yeah.
So can we just
Consistency.
are they all the same? Right?
Yeah.
Is a state law different than a statute? Is a statute different than a state law?
Laws can be defined by actually the judiciary.
But
So-
in the
But
law
we
of
should-
charter, is it different?
I don't know. I think we should just I'd make a comment that it should be
To
consistent
check.
throughout.
Yeah, it just threw me off. I was like, well, what's the difference? And I'm looking it up, and it's Google told me it was the same thing, but it might have lied to me.
Right.
That was all.
Well, wouldn't it take an initiative to amend the charter, an initiative for somebody to introduce a change?
Whether it comes from us or whether it comes from the public, I don't know.
Right.
Why? I mean, that's true for any.
I'm just thinking maybe that's why that's in there. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I don't know why it's needed. Anybody?
No, we can. The petition section has a lot of everything that needs to be in there for changing anything.
So I'm in favor of striking the words and initiatives.
Yep.
Put a question mark next to it.
Right.
And then chapter 11 is completely new. Wasn't there before. It says repeal and modification of this charter shall not affect the validity of previously enacted ordinance, resolutions, or bylaws.
Well, isn't that the whole purpose of modifying a charter?
Well, you can't make a charter retroactive. I think that's what this is saying. But I don't know if statute already says that or not.
Can you explain that to me?
Hmm?
Can you explain that to me?
So this says that if we establish an ordinance if the charter gives us the right to establish a specific kind of ordinance and we establish that ordinance, and then the charter is changed in the future to not allow that type of ordinance explicitly, it wouldn't invalidate that prior ordinance because the prior ordinance would have been put in place based on the charter that was in place at the time that it was enacted.
Okay.
That's what this says. This says that any action you take prior to a charter change is not invalidated by the charter change.
Okay. But you could still change the ordinance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't prevent you.
I was reading it, and I
but changing the charter itself doesn't impact. If you change your charter to remove, or the legislature changes your charter to remove an action, you probably will have to modify an ordinance to take it out. But I just use that as an example.
No, I was thinking that was helpful. Thank
So this would say that if we take out the list of appointees that the manager has appointed, it doesn't unappoint those. It doesn't dissolve their appointments. It still takes action, I guess. So,
Can we get a legal clarification that if we have, I'm just using this out of the blue, an ordinance to charge fees, the charter is then amended to remove that, does that ordinance have to stay as it's written in order to remain in effect? Or can we then amend and update that ordinance and still have it be
Oh,
viable?
that's a good question. Right. If you no longer have the authority to generate fees, can you ever change your,
Right.
other than repealing it?
Right.
Yeah.
It seems like that new effective date would, in essence, be a new updated ordinance that then would not be allowable for statute.
So basically, if you don't want to lose your ordinances, resolutions, or bylaws, just don't change your charter
The legislature could change our charter whenever they want without our
without any
without our
notice.
say so. Yeah, they've done that. I mean, they took out all of the references, all of the occurrences of the word select man or select men got removed and replaced with select board member without us ever being notified. I have no idea who initiated it or how it happened, but it did.
Hmm.
It was never a legislative vote. It was just a action that took place. But
Yeah.
so they can. The Dillon's real state, we can only do what we're allowed to do for the legislature. So yeah, they could change our charter whenever they want.
You definitely should have legal check that, because that's kind of a conflict. I mean, you're changing your charter so that you can have a planning and a DRB. That could be read as, well, you can't have a planning and DRB because your original charter was set up your planning.
Oh,
I'm just confused as the way, like the ordinance. I mean,
oh, good question. Right.
Yeah.
Because this would suggest that we can still have a ZBA.
I mean, to me, that's saying that even if the
Because our
legislature
prior-
makes a change,
Oh.
it doesn't apply.
But you have the charter change in Montpelier already, so that's going to eliminate your, if they accept it.
Yeah, it's just an example. It's not necessarily that's the thing that would. But yeah. So Don, do you have any memory of why this was put in there?
Nope.
Greg, are you getting what we're questioning here?
I think so, yeah. That basically, I think Tracy's example that to me makes a lot of sense. If you take something out of the charter, do you then lose the ability to do that if it's already been enacted? Am I saying capturing what you're saying?
Well, the thing is, the other thing is that the secondary piece to that is if you are allowed to continue doing what your prior charter said you could do, can you make any changes to that other than repealing it?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
Right. That's the yeah.
Yep.
Legal.
All right. I wrote legal review, and what does this allow or not allow? Okay, and then the last subchapter, severability of provisions.
So there's no number and there's no subtitle,
It just changes the name that to which.
but there's no numbers and there's no subtitle.
117-1201. That's not going to change.
It's crossed out.
It's crossed out.
Well, that's
in this version. I don't know if that was a mistake. Or not, but-
No, it might have been a mistake somewhere. I captured it from what we got. I think that's the type of thing that a legal review will turn up and say it should stay in there.
Yeah.
yeah. So this is just a one-word change from that to which.
Yep.
Changes the title of the subchapter.
Changes the title to severability of provisions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Just makes it specific.
It just
to
makes it
provisions.
right. It matches up. Yep.
Okay, so this means you can slice and dice the charter up, and the legislature can invalidate one section of it. Doesn't invalidate the entire thing.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. That's it. Well, next time we talk about this, it'll probably be exciting again. I don't know when we'll be able to circle back to this because budget season starts here pretty soon, and we'll work on assembling notes about all the discussions that we've had and some of the bigger policy questions we'll have to come back and have a bigger discussion on. So. Any other comments anybody wants to make about this charter thing in general? All right.
Do you think that we're still on track to have the package come back to us in time to decide whether to warn it for March?
I don't know. I will comment, then I'll give Greg the opportunity. I think that maybe we could get some of the wording changes back around if we want to, with some of the bigger policy discussions. I think they take more time. Unless we want to have really long meetings going into the winter. That's just my opinion. I could be, I'm only one person of the five of us. So Greg, I don't know what you think about the possibility of getting substantial portions of this before voters in March.
Yeah, no, Andy, I agree with what you laid out. I think the next steps are going to be to take all your feedback, have the town attorney look at that, get some clarification from staff as needed, be able to bring that back to you and summarize and kind of see where we're at. If you remember from last year, I think we needed to have the proposals done by December, pretty early December, in order to have the public hearings and get everything in front of voters by March. So you're really looking at about 3 meetings to try to have that done. So some small stuff, probably, if you're talking about big policy changes that you want to get more public input on, it might be a tight squeeze.
All right, let's move on to next business item, which is discussion of real estate, which we'll do in executive session later. So consent agenda.
I make the motion, we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you,
Second.
Don. Thank you, Tracy. Any further discussion about consent?
I just had one question on the warrants. There's 12 million that we paid to the school district. Do we get the interest from the money while we have it? We collect it all and we get interest from that while we have it, or do we just hold it for them? Just curious.
I believe, Kendall, I'll get confirmation on this. I believe we do collect the interest. Similarly, we collect any delinquent payments and penalties. That's part of the benefit that we get of being the manager and collector of all the taxes. But I will confirm that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Right, yeah, and we have to give them all of their money, even if we haven't received it. Yeah.
Also true. Yeah.
Have to make them whole. Okay, any other consent comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Reading file. Any board member comments?
I have one.
Go ahead.
And I have to apologize because I don't know the gentleman's name. He is doing all the flowers around the town at all the various intersections, and they just look lovely. And I know he's constantly out there, and I just wanted to say thank you. I think he's probably an overlooked employee, to tell you the truth. I don't know his name, but I just want to say thank you.
Don, that is Tyler Atwood. He does seasonal work for us through Public Works, and yeah, he does a great job of it. And he's all over the place, making sure that the plantings look good, as you said. So thank you. I'll happily pass it on to him.
Please do. And I would also like to issue our regards for quick healing for Tammy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Ethan, go ahead.
I got a comment because I heard Don bring it up earlier, but can we add the November 14th budget day to the schedule?
Yes.
Perfect. That was it.
Tracy.
I just wanted to call out Explore Essex Passport Week now going on through Saturday. And he's got
I got mine too.
his passport up. Just wanted to call that out. And I also, Greg, you may not know this, but the investments memo, I was curious what laddering the investments mean.
Yep. That means, so if you think about CDs, they're typically a fixed term. So rather than putting all of our money into a 12-month CD, we do a 3-year, 3 month, 6 month, 9 month, 12 months. So it kind of if you visualize it like that, it looks like a ladder. That way, when the 3 month rolls up and expires, you can put it onto a 12 month. And so then you have another one that expires in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And you kind of have this rolling cycle where your investments always the CDs always roll out, and then you can invest into a new one. So you really kind of have money available every 3 months, and you're constantly reinvesting it.
Okay. I thought that's what it meant. I just wanted to make sure because I've never officially heard that phrase before.
Kendall.
And I'll segue into that to saying that I noticed last year during the budget and the audit that the town only made $33,000 of interest. And I mentioned that to staff, and they immediately, Dan made a change where they increased the yield of the interest to 3% from 1%. And now he has increased that upwards of 5%. So you're looking at a significant interest jump from 33,000 in our audit to potentially 600,000 interest. That is tremendous. Kudos to staff, especially the Dan and the team. And I would like to talk some more at some point in time with the board about what we do with that interest. That's all. But kudos, great. That's fantastic. That, I believe, is what the taxpayers want to see.
Thank you, Kendall, and yes, kudos to Dan, and thank you also for giving us the push and making the idea come to life. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? I was going to show off my passport here, but
How many stickers you got?
well, I got 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh my goodness.
5, 6, 7 of them so far.
Make sure you buy your tickets too.
And yeah, I bought a 50-50 ticket and a ticket for the painting of Indian Brook. That's an amazing picture. Amazing piece of work. Piece of art. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I know.
Do we have?
There's gonna be. Oh, I forgot one quick comment. There's gonna be cows in the gym.
I was in the gym.
That's what Tammy said.
She said we were inside if it rains.
If it rains. All right, cool. I had a friend once who claimed he could raise a pig in my basement without it smelling bad at all. He was trying to convince my mother to let him raise a pig in our basement.
She wouldn't let him,
and then so that she could then get it slaughtered and put it in our freezer for the winter. But yeah, she didn't buy it.
Yeah, I wonder why.
I have one more comment about the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
How is the subscription looking? Are we getting more and more residents signing up for the Essex News?
I think so, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. I have heard a lot of positive feedback from the people who are receiving it, though.
And just there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there.
Yeah. All right, now executive session motions.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I want to go home early today. I move that the select board enter executive session to discuss the negotiating or securing of real estate purchase or lease options in accordance with 1 VSA section 313A2 and to include the town manager and deputy town manager.
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Don. Any further discussion? So we won't be making any motions afterwards. So we will adjourn. We won't rejoin the online meeting. And all those in favor of entering executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 5-0. And thank you all for coming tonight. And hope to see you again in 2 weeks.